you've probably heard of some ridiculous lawsuits before. People suing over coffee being too hot or over ghosts in their house. But today's story? Oh, this one takes crazy to a whole new level. Because this man didn't sue for money. He sued his neighbor for training a squirrel to attack him. Yeah, you heard that right. A squirrel. An actual wild, furry, acorn-hoarding squirrel. Welcome back to the channel, where we uncover the most bizarre legal battles you've never heard of. In today's case, the attack squirrel of Ohio is going to make you question humanity. And maybe your neighbors too. It all started in a quiet little suburb in Cleveland, Ohio. James Ellison, a 56-year-old retired mailman, lived in a small house on Maplewood Drive. Right next door was Mark Johnson, a younger guy in his 30s who worked from home as a freelance graphic designer. At first, they were friendly. Small talk, borrowing tools, that sort of thing. But as in every suburban legend, things went downhill. The trouble began over a bird feeder. James loved birds. He had several feeders hanging on his porch, attracting all kinds of blue jays and cardinals. But Mark, he wasn't a fan. He claimed the feeders were dropping seeds everywhere and attracting rodents, including, you guessed it, squirrels. One day, James found a note taped to his mailbox. It read, "Your birdseed is bringing pests. Clean it up or I'll handle it myself." And from that moment, their Cold War began. Over the next few weeks, James started noticing something strange. Whenever he went outside, there was a squirrel sitting on his fence, just staring at him. At first, he thought it was cute, until it started following him. He told his wife that he'd seen the same squirrel every single morning, sitting near Mark's backyard, waiting. And whenever Mark came outside, the squirrel would run up to him and take food straight from his hand. It wasn't afraid, it was trained. Then came the real drama. One morning, as James was taking out his garbage, the squirrel leapt from a low branch and landed right on his shoulder. It started scratching, biting, and chattering like it was on a mission. James panicked, threw his garbage bag in the air, stumbled, and fell. Neighbors came running after hearing him yell, "It's attacking me! Get it off!" By the time anyone arrived, the squirrel had run back toward Mark's yard. James ended up in the ER with several scratches and 2 bite marks. Nothing life-threatening, but humiliating. When he told the nurse what happened, she reportedly asked, "Did you provoke the squirrel?" To which James replied, "No. It was trained. My neighbor sent it." That's when he decided he'd had enough. He went to the local police department and filed a formal complaint. But when the police arrived at Mark's house, Mark laughed it off. He told them, "What am I supposed to do? Arrest the squirrel?" Still, James wouldn't let it go. He hired a lawyer and filed a lawsuit against his neighbor for harassment via animal proxy. His claim? That Mark had deliberately conditioned the squirrel to recognize and attack him. The court filings were golden. One line even read, "The animal acted with intent and malice consistent with the defendant's motives." Yes, he literally argued that the squirrel had a motive. The trial became a local sensation. By the time it reached the county court, reporters were calling it the squirrel assassin case. TV crews even showed up on the first day of the hearing. James walked in wearing a bandage on his hand, holding a folder labeled evidence. Inside were blurry photos of a squirrel near Mark's yard and a small bag of peanuts he claimed Mark used for training purposes. Mark's defense attorney called the entire thing ridiculous. "Ladies and gentlemen, my client cannot control wildlife. This is not a Marvel movie. The squirrel is not his sidekick." The courtroom erupted in laughter. Even the judge had to pause to compose herself. Then the witnesses came in. Neighbor number 1 testified that Mark seemed very friendly with a certain squirrel. Neighbor number 2 said she saw Mark talking to it. And neighbor number 3, this is real, said she once saw the squirrel sitting on Mark's shoulder. James' lawyer jumped on that. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, this animal has been domesticated." Mark just shook his head and whispered, "This is nuts." After 2 days of testimonies, the judge finally had enough. She stated, While this court sympathizes with the plaintiff's injuries, there is no legal basis for believing the defendant trained a wild squirrel to attack anyone. Case dismissed. But the story didn't end there. Within a week, the local newspaper headline read, "Ohio man loses lawsuit claiming neighbor trained attack squirrel." And just like that, it went viral. Late-night hosts joked about it. Memes flooded Reddit. Someone even made a fake movie poster. Squirrel, nature's assassin. James became a reluctant internet celebrity while Mark leaned into the meme. He started selling t-shirts that said, "Beware of my trained squirrel." Meanwhile, local kids would sometimes leave peanuts on James' doorstep just to mess with him. He later said in an interview, "Every time I hear rustling in the trees, I still look up." You know, stories like this remind us of one thing. You can't make this stuff up. A man goes to court, not for a car crash, not for fraud, not for some big scandal, but because he swears his neighbor trained a squirrel to attack him. And somewhere in that courtroom, a judge had to sit there and keep a straight face, while the lawyers argued about a rodent. This isn't just a story about one weird lawsuit. It's about what happens when everyday life turns into a legal circus, when personal grudges meet the power of paperwork. Because in America, if you can imagine it, someone has probably already filed a lawsuit about it. And honestly, that's kind of what makes these stories fascinating. They show us just how strange, and sometimes hilarious, human nature can be. You give two neighbors a small disagreement, throw in a squirrel, a bit of pride, and the internet, and suddenly you've got a national headline. Now, maybe James truly believed that furry little creature was out to get him. Maybe Mark did feed it every morning just to annoy him. Or maybe it was all one big misunderstanding that spiraled completely out of control. But one thing's for sure, once this story hit the news, the world couldn't stop laughing. And deep down, maybe we all need a story like that once in a while. Something so absurd it reminds us that life is too short to take everything seriously. So, what do you think? Was this just a paranoid neighbor, or did Mark really mastermind the world's first squirrel hitman? Let me know in the comments. I read every one of them, and trust me, I love seeing your takes on these wild legal tales. And hey, if you enjoyed this story, I've got plenty more just like it. From million-dollar pants to haunted houses and courtrooms, we've got a whole world of unbelievable true stories waiting for you. So go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and maybe, just maybe, be kind to your neighbors, because you never know what they're training in their backyard.